Yeah, now we're more
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the May 2014 Houston Clutter Coaching Meetup group. Today's topic is the dreaded do's and don'ts of paper organizing, right? How to deal with all of your paper. So there's a whole bunch of people in here. Everybody say hi. Hi. Everybody has problems with paper, right? Apparently. So I need to say thank you to the Nature Discovery Center where we do this meeting. They graciously let me use this fabulous room. And also that we're broadcasting live on YouTube, and then the recording we'll post later. And we are without an extra computer today, so if you are trying to contact anybody, you won't be able to. We're not able to monitor today, so.
Actually, I can still check the email. So.
Oh, okay. So the hccm@cfhou.com is a way for you to email questions if you want to, and Ed can check that from the phone. So we're having technical difficulties today. I hope all is well on the YouTube end. Hi, everybody. Hi, Mom. Okay, so we're going to talk about paper, right? Everybody's worst nightmare, apparently. I get a question about paper every time I speak. Every client that I work with, eventually somebody says, yeah, and what about paper? And the question is always something along the lines of, how do you deal with paper? And the answer is like an hour and a half long, so I don't usually get to give it all. So today we're going to talk about as many of the pieces that we can and hopefully answer your questions too about what particularly clogs you up, gives you trouble, because whatever's bothering you is bothering a whole bunch of other people in the room too. So it should be a good time to raise it and share with others. All the paper that comes into your house is like this flotsam and jetsam. I imagine it is your house is the ocean, and the paper is all the stuff that gets floating in and out of your house, right? And it comes by the mail, and you pick up paper at events. You know, go to the doctor and you come home with paper. You go to the volunteer group and you come home with paper. You go to the shop and you come home with paper. I'm not sure why when you buy clothes you end up with paper, but you do. If you have little kids, they're carrying their mailbox on their backs in the form of a backpack, right? And that paper comes home and goes back constantly. There's constant stream of paper coming in. And it's never ending. And, you know, you sort of imagine the papers all doing this on the ocean, right, in your house. And some of it becomes stagnant pools. And that's the piles of paper that you stick on the counter, and then you put something else on top of it, and it sort of stays there forever, right? And then there's the stuff that gets sunk to the bottom when the party is happening, and you sweep all the stuff off into a box, and you go put it in the closet, and you close the door. And then you never see it again, right? That's the stuff that like went to the bottom of the lake. And and then there's the stuff that's like coming in on the tide, right? It rolls in, it rolls out. And this is the stuff that it sits on the surfaces and you pick it up and you put it in another place and you pick it up and you put it in. It's constantly getting done like this, right? So I've actually had the ultimate paper shuffling experience this week because I have a client who's 96. I was just telling Howard about this. They thought he had bed bugs in his apartment, which he vehemently denies to me. I defy them to show me a dead bed bug in this house anywhere. But the result is panic. Oh my God, there might be bed bugs in the assisted living facility. That's a bad thing. And so they go into high shriek mode, right? And they go in, and the people that are going to treat the apartment say it's too crowded in here and we have to pull some of it out. So they pulled about half of the contents out and stuck it in another apartment and some of it in a pod, and then they treated all three places. And then they called me. So if they just called me when they got started, I could have controlled it a little better. But as you can imagine, his paper went, right? They were in a hurry, and it just went swish, bang, and it went off everywhere. And trying to unravel that has been a big task for me the past 2 weeks. It's quite astonishing. And he still swears that we haven't found all his paper. Like, there's still some stuff missing. And we're having a discussion about that because I think he's forgetting what he's looking for. And anyway, you too could be 96 and having all your stuff spread all over the universe. And you don't want that to happen, right? So we need to handle it before you get that far. because what a nightmare. And his literally tide came in and it sucked it all out to the next bay. And, you know, and then I had to carry it all back in. That was a lot of work. We don't want you to have that much paper laying around. I threw away a lot of old paper of his. And so we want to try to get you through that process, okay? So we're going to talk about do's and don'ts. I'm using this as a starting point to launch topics and for you guys to ask questions. So feel free to say, yeah, but, yeah, you know, raise your questions. So the first one, don't start off trying to organize the first piece of paper on the pile. So most people sit down to the mound of paper, right? I'm going to organize today. Ta-da! You have coffee. You're sitting there. You're going to organize the paper. And you pick up the first piece of paper and you say, how am I going to organize this piece of paper? Where am I going to put it? Oh, that means I have to have a file cabinet. Oh, that means I have to have a system. Oh my God, I don't know what system I'm going to use. Oh, but what if I can't find it? But how am I going to keep up with the calendar? And then you sort of spiral off into, you know, oblivion, and you get stuck, right? So this is the mistaken first step, and that's what I don't want you to do. Don't start there. The only thing you need to start with, the do part of this equation is, sort all the paper and only make one decision. Keep, toss. That's all you got to do. I promise you, 7 years into my business, I've done a lot of paper in 7 years, let me tell you. And I have never gone to someone's paper pile and unearthed and kept 50% of it, 25% of it. I would guess that the average is 5%. Like I go through all this paper, and I find the Social Security card, the original Social Security card, right? But I'm throwing away 2 garbage bags full of paper besides. So I kept 2 pieces of paper that were really, really important, and I threw away a bunch of garbaggio, okay? So although it looks like a mountain that you are going to die if you have to manage it all, it's not really true. And I say from vast experience, when you start to dig out a pile of mail you've been ignoring, papers you've been stacking, piles that you've been sticking on the desk, you will end up keeping a really small portion of that really big pile. And the rest of it's going to go to shred, recycling, you know, trash, whatever your risk level of comfort is, okay? So don't set yourself up to fail. Don't start trying to organize before you've gone through all the paper, because when you make a box and write keep on the outside of it, and you start going through the paper, and the only decision you have to make, am I keeping it? Am I not keeping it? Once you do that, you'll end up with a box that has papers in it, and every paper in that box will be important, and you'll end up with 15 trash bags of stuff that's going to the curb. Then you sit down with this box of paper, and now it's time to plan your file system. Now it's time to figure out where you're going to keep the bills. Now it's time to figure out how you're going to keep your calendar, and what about the events, and what about my tax returns and all that. But it's this much paper instead of 5 rooms of paper. And it'll take you a while just to do keep toss. When I go and work with somebody, it's really labor intensive to pick up each piece of paper and say, I don't want this one, I want this one, I don't want this one, I want this one. You have to look at it, you have to read it, you have to figure out what it is, and make your keep toss decision. So you're going to be doing that for a while before you get to the bottom. And you just have to trust that as you find something important, it's going in the box. There's nothing else in the box except stuff that's important. You're not allowed to put any more files in it. Don't violate the keep box. It has to be all stuff that you've already looked at. That way, at any point while you're doing the project, if you suddenly realize you've got to find the car insurance, you know it's somewhere in the box. And you only have to look through a box with a paper instead of panic and wonder where in the house it is, right? So if it takes you 6 months to get through all the paper in your house, and you keep, you know, you just keep putting the good stuff into the keep box, even though you don't have a system, it's all right there. So if there's a disaster and you have to find it, if there's a hurricane and you have to leave, the keep box can go with you, unsorted, and you still have everything that you've identified that's important in it. Okay? Wendy had a question.
What about the things that need to be shredded? Are those considered a keep? Or?
No. Keep keep is its own collection, and then getting rid of, basically, toss is a category that covers, I'm happy to throw it in recycling because I don't care. I don't think it's sensitive data. I don't want to put it in recycling. I want to put it in the trash. Or I think it's got something on it important that I think needs to be shredded. So there's basically 3 categories of going out of the house. And it's totally, the parameters are set by your own sense of risk about what's on there. I recommend things like you want to shred anything that has a full account number. You want to shred if it has your social security number, if it has your car VIN number, VIN, the driver's license number. These are sort of the keys to your financial kingdom, right? Your legal identity kingdom. And you don't want those full numbers floating around. But anything that has your name and address on it, yeah, that ship has sailed. They can get your name and address without coming and digging in your trash. So you don't need that shred pile to be huge. But if it has financial records, you know, that kind of stuff, yeah, it might be a bigger shred pile. But you need to do that based on how comfortable you feel. So if you want to shred it all to be happy, knock yourself out. But it's all part of the out category.
Probably knock your shredder out too.
Right? Yeah, once you get a big pile, it's kind of worth it to go to Office Depot and pay by the pound, or to call Southern Shred and have them come to the house and throw it in their truck. Yes, ma'am.
At the end of the month, of course, having a shred day, you can bring your bag to them.
Who's having that shred day?
Of course.
Oak Forest.
I think it's on
In Houston.
What weekend?
Who is Oak Forest?
Oak Forest is a neighborhood on the sort of inner loop side. It's sort of around the outside of the Heights a little bit.
Like Ellen and 43rd area.
Yeah. And the truth is that there's lots of shredding stuff going on all the time. So whenever you're ready to shred, just Google free shredding and, you know, see what pops up.
Yeah, if you search on free shredding Houston, about every other weekend there's something somewhere.
Somebody's doing something. And if it's making you crazy and you want to handle it right then, there's ways to make that happen. And you know what? It's worth the money, because if you buy a shredder and sit there and shred 6 months worth of paper, you will burn out the shredder and have to buy the shredder again and again and again. You'll waste a whole bunch of time. So it's totally worth your time to spend the money to go get a box of sensitive data shredded. Okay. Any more questions about that one?
Should you watch while they shred it? If it's sensitive data?
That's up to your sense of risk. If you go to a reputable company, then I wouldn't worry about it. But if it makes you nervous, Southern Shred's truck has a camera on it. You can watch the camera. You can watch it go into the teeth. You can go to Office Depot and you can stand there and watch them put it in the shredder or put it in the shred box. You know, it's just whatever gives you the most comfort and, you know, feeling of risk management.
I went to one organized by a bank, so I felt comfortable leaving it.
Yeah, right? Like their reputation would be ruined if somebody's stuff was stolen from the stuff that they brought to the bank to be shredded. So, yeah, you know, do your due diligence about what company you're going to use, and then you'll be happy. But most of them, all of the companies provide. If they come with a big truck, they all have some way for you to see what they're doing, because they want you to feel like you're not pulling the wool. They're not pulling the wool over you. So. It helps their business if you feel safe, right? So they're going to do everything they can to make you feel safe. Okay? Yes?
Like you have different categories for the toss pile, but you have different categories for the keep pile, like
Well, you will.
Financial related versus memories or something like that.
You will, but in the beginning, I don't want you to think about it, because it will spin you off into, you know, figuring out what you're going to do and what categories you're going to have and all that kind of stuff, and you don't want to get derailed. You just want to separate the wheat from the chaff at this point. No, she was asking about, there's categories in the toss factor, and are there also categories in the keep side? And yes, there will be ultimately, but you don't care until you get to the end and want to separate them out at that point. If you have massive amounts of investment statements and you want to pile them all in one pile in a box by themselves, okay. You know, if you think one category keepsakes is going to be really big, you know, I wouldn't go beyond 1 or 2 boxes though, because I just don't want you to get derailed. And ultimately, you want to leave yourself with all of the gems to play with and get rid of all the other stuff first. Step 1. Okay? Okay. Next one is, don't keep every bill you've ever paid. Nobody needs that much history. And it used to be that people would keep all the utility bills, for instance, because they were going to add them up and do the average and compare prices. And there's a million other ways for you to get historical data that don't involve you adding up numbers from statements from prior years, right? So don't keep every bill you've ever paid. Do filter your bills based on the type of expense. So, for instance, utilities. I find lots of back utilities when I'm digging through people's paper. Here's 5 years of electric bills. Here's 5 years of water bills. Here's 5 years of Comcast, right? The television's already been watched. The water's already gone through the pipes. The electricity already ran through the wires. There's no returning it. There's no getting it back. There's no changing the price. There's there's nothing you can do about it. It's done. So as long as you're happy that they took your payment and put it against your account, not somebody else's account, that's the universal Gayle shred noise, right? Make it go. Some people need to keep utilities if they are deducting. Like if you have a business and it's part of your business, it's like any other expense, you got to keep it. But the average person that's working with paper at their house, it's not related to business. It's just the water for the toilet, right? For the bath. It's not something that you have to worry about. So start with utilities and pay the bill and make sure that the payment from the last check showed up, and then zip, you can get rid of it. Yes, ma'am.
Is that an account number that needs to be shredded, or just?
If they show the full account number, you can rip the account number off, and yeah, but make it go away. And then you don't need a utility file for all of those utilities. You can have one that says utilities, and it has your account set up when you sign up with Comcast, and it has your account set up when you sign up with the water. You have your basic account documents, and then all those monthly bills that come, pay them and let them go. Pay them and let them go. It's okay. And you can go online and sorry. That was a surprise. You can go online. It's the new
That should be a surprise by now.
I know. It's the new wallpaper. They don't. It's not.
You can double tape it this time. Just
Stand there and hold it.
oh yeah.
Okay, so utility bills, bank statements, got to keep that, right? So that's one of the expenses. If you have bank statements, investment statements, that's stuff that's part of your tax return. You got to keep that. Anything that that is part of your tax return that you're going to deduct, you need to keep that. But if you're not deducting it, you got to think again. Credit card statements. This is a big one. Everybody thinks credit card statements are really, really important. You got to keep them all. But if there's nothing on there that's durable goods, like, the once every 10 years you buy a washing machine. It's not like every month you're buying a washing machine, right? You buy a washing machine, you buy the fridge, those kinds of durable goods, you might want to keep that receipt for the time you buy it. If you have tax expense on those credit cards, things that you're going to deduct, yes, you need to keep that. But, some people have credit cards and they're just making payments on them, they're not even using them anymore. If they credited the payment and there's no other charges on it, make it go away. So you want to evaluate, no, I don't want you to keep all credit card statements. I want you to decide, is this one that has data on it that I care about and that I'm going to need later, or is this useless and I can throw it out? Yes?
And they can now be done online, so you don't
Yes.
get paper coming in.
Yes, they can be done online, and most of them provide as a member benefit that they send out an annual report, right, with everything for the whole year. So, yeah, when the annual one shows up, right? Yes, Howard?
Why do I want to keep the washing machine receipt?
Usually because they have those kinds of durable goods have a longer term warranty. They warranty it for 3 years or 5 years or 10 years or depending on what it is. And usually part of the warranty is you have to prove date of purchase and that kind of stuff, and that's how you do it. Once the warranty's expired, then it's kind of a moot point, right? Other than you want to know that last time you bought the fridge it cost you $500 and this time it's going to cost you $1,500, and that's painful. But really, it's a support warranty for long-term goods that in theory are going to last for 20 years, and they better, but if they die in 10, then you want recourse, and part of it is to proceed. Okay? You're welcome. Who has questions? Anybody? Don't keep expired home or auto insurance policies. You have no idea how many of those I throw away. Right? It's like people have a file and it says insurance, car insurance, and home. They're very diligent about putting it in, and they never take it out. But like they make you renew it every 6 months. So 10 years into your life, you've got 20 fat insurance statements in there, none of which are valid. Because guess what? The minute the period expires at December 31st, 11:59 p.m., the insurance company's off the hook, and they're shredding your policy, man. They don't care about you anymore. They only ever care about the one that's in force, right? So the only caveat to that I'm going to tell you is, if you have a claim pending from a prior policy period, maybe you had a wreck 2 months ago and they're still working on it, and the policy, this one canceled, got to the end of the period and you're into the new one, I would keep the policy period that exists while you had the accident until everything is resolved. But unless you have a pending claim, once the policy is dead, make it go away. It needs to die because they're going to give you another one. And it's sort of, think of it as expired milk. This is my way to think about it differently, right? You have milk and it's in the fridge and it's the expiration date. When it expires, you throw it out, right? And you go get new milk with a new expiration date. Same thing with insurance. When the milk is dead, the insurance company doesn't care about you no more. They don't want it, and you need to throw it out. So it's one of those things that you're going to be putting in and out of the file over and over again. Homeowners insurance, car insurance, health insurance, whether you work for a company and you're an employee, or you're self-employed and you have your own, the policy still changes every year. They're constantly doing stuff to it. You have to re-enroll, blah, blah, blah. So all that old data out, all the new data in, it's something you have to shuffle. You guys aren't going to like this one. Don't ignore the junk mail when it comes in. Why? Because the junk mail is the seed of every pile in your house. It is the stuff that no one wants to look at, and it creates a pile that then gets shuffled into a box, that then goes into the closet, and then someone pays me to dig it out and throw it away. So you can either look at it 5 pieces at a time per day now, or you can pay me later to throw it out for you. Those are your choices. Or you can wait for it to anchor the house and collapse the roof or something, right? Junk mail makes everybody crazy. Mail, I've said this a million times, mail comes every day, and it's going to come for 5 months after you're dead. So the mail's not going away. So you have to come to a point of zen about the mail. I will handle the mail every day because it's never going to stop, and I can do nothing to make it stop. I'm sorry. I can't help you. So you have to deal with it, and the best way to deal with it is in little bitty pieces, right? What came today is the little bitty piece you can deal with. So deal with it. If you throw out the junk mail and ignore the important mail, at least you got 80% of it out into the trash, right? It will never become part of a pile. You will never have to pick it up again. It will never be the seed of chaos that you have to unravel later. It will never be the pile that's this tall that somewhere in there is your son's, trip explanation about the summer program, but you don't know where, so you can't throw the pile out, right? Or, like I said, I'll go through a pile this tall of stuff, and in the middle is the Social Security card, your original Social Security card. So you can't just pick it up and go, poof, because you're going to lose something important. But if you don't let it go in the house, give yourself that 3 minutes. You can set a clock. Go put the kitchen timer on. And when it comes, you take it out of the mailbox and go stand in front of the trash can and go, that's trash, that's trash, that's trash. And if it's trash, trash, shred, put a little shredder next to the trash can and go trash, trash, shred. Those little home $20 shredders are designed for 1 piece at a time every once in a while, right? And so if you shred 2 pieces of paper a day, awesome. It'll keep working for a while. You won't burn out the motor, but that's what they're designed for. So Make that part of your routine. And I know you come home from work and you're exhausted and you got the mail and you're like, and you start to derobe. In my household, the first thing that you have to do when you come in the house, you have to go to the bathroom and you have to take the bra off. These are the first things that happen. And there's 2 ladies in the house, so we're both like running to our bathrooms, and you know, if you don't make it part of your routine before you sit down for the evening and get into the couch and watch the television or whatever you're distracted by, you will have a pile. It will grow, it multiplies, and then you are spending 5 hours on a Saturday losing the pile when you would rather be doing practically anything else, right? So think of that 3 minutes a day is, I can either do 3 minutes a day, or I can spend 5 hours really, really angry while I'm going through the paper. That's the trade-off. So you're really helping yourself. It's irritating, but it only takes 3 minutes, and then you won't have to give up a Saturday. Okay? Okay. Who has questions? Nobody? Yes?
No, I was just going to suggest, I have a P.O. box so that I don't want to bring mail in my house. But on Wednesdays, it always deliver the circulars and everything. So the first thing I go to is make sure that nothing that somebody mails me at home until it's supposed to. It just goes directly in the trash. That P.O. box, I don't leave the post office.
That's right.
Anything that I don't need.
There you go. So she's...
shredders right there.
There you go. See, that's helpful. She's going to the P.O. box, and she's not leaving the P.O. box with anything that she doesn't want. So all of the junk goes into the shredders at the P.O. box. Let's just give her a hand. Yay. Excellent management. That's great. That's exactly the mindset. It's like, I don't want anything in the house that isn't important to me. So I'm going to get rid of it as fast as possible, and that's the goal. What's next? Don't keep papers around as reminders of things you need to do.
What?
What? What do you mean, Gayle? Okay, so I have a whole bunch of clients who we pick up a piece of paper and they say, oh, that's to remind me to do this chore, do this thing, go to buy this object. And it's like, you know, here's a piece they tore out of the magazine, and somewhere in the corner is this little picture, and this little picture is reminding them to do something. Like, wow, that's a big disconnect between the visual, then takes them off a mental path that eventually gets them to the to-do item, right? But here's the thing. Those pieces of paper that you save to remind you to do stuff, they just become piles, right? Because you leave them out so you can remember them. So then you have more than 3, and then the reminders just become a pile. Well, then you have to remember to look at the pile, which by definition you will not do, right? You will refuse to look at the pile with all the reminders in it. But, you know, when we're being paid, when I'm being paid to sit there and go through paper, then they're reminded. Of course, you know, half of them have already gone by, and it's not any good anymore, and the coupon's expired, and so clearly this is not an effective or efficient way to capture your to-do items. It seems like a good idea, but really we have to come up with a better solution. So, A, spend a little energy and time trying to come up with a way for you to track to-dos. Doesn't matter how fancy it is. It can be lists on a piece of paper. It can be an app in your smartphone. It can be a bulletin board with things tacked on it. I don't care how you do it. And you may have to experiment until you find one that you like. And here's the missing ingredient of all failed systems: willingness to execute the to-do system, right? So in order to support yourself in that, you want it to be a system that you're willing to do. So you don't want to go buy the latest and greatest, fanciest, whatever. If you're not tech savvy, if you're not, my mother could never keep a to-do list on her cell phone. Her cell phone has the capacity, but she wouldn't even know how to turn it on, right? So that system doesn't work for her. She writes it on a pad of paper. She writes things on her calendar. That's how she keeps up with it. You have to find a system that you're willing to do, because you got to do it in order to make it useful. Any system that you do is going to be better than a bunch of little floating pieces of paper around your house, because guess what's going to happen? They're going to get buried, and you're going to lose them anyway. So the theory is you'll be able to find them. Oh, it's out, I'll remember. And yeah, I think that you probably capture 10% of stuff that way. and the rest of it just gets lost in the tide, right? It gets picked up and moved away. It gets stacked, 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 and it's gone. So invest in, exercise your, right to a to-do list of some kind, whatever technology you care about, and take those pieces that are the reminders, the piece of paper that's to remind you to do X, Y, Z, and get it into your to-do list somehow. Okay? Because that will guarantee that you get more of it done than having it float around the house loose will ever get you. Okay? Who has a question? Taxes? The question is taxes. Would you like to elaborate on the question, please?
How long to keep them? What do I need to keep? And how long to keep them?
Okay. So taxes have parameters defined by the IRS code, which is basically right now, if you are a personal tax return, if you're filing a personal tax return, they have 3 years to audit you. So assuming that you file on time, it's 2014, and sometime during 2014 you're going to file 2013 taxes, right? Whether you did it in April or whether you're going to do it in October, it doesn't matter. That means that your counting is 2013 and 2012 and 2011. That's your audit exposure right now. So anything behind that, they can't really, unless you're committing fraud, then I can do nothing for you. Assuming that you're a regular taxpayer and you're not being accused of fraud, they can audit you back 3 years, and that's as far as they can go.
If you're committing fraud, you probably don't have the paperwork you need to.
Exactly right.
Stuff anyway.
It's in the file, right? So if you file, it's always from when you file those. So like if you're I have a couple clients that they haven't filed 5 or 6 years, right? So for them, the only things they have filed are 2007 backwards. So they can be audited 7, 6, 5, right? So it depends on when you file it. If you don't file 2013 until 2020, then they can audit you then, right? But the idea is they basically can go back 3 years of filed returns, and then they can't anymore. So that means that once you get past the audit period, you're settled, you're finished. Save your return. Save evidence of your payment. If you had to send a check in, right, with the return, you want to have evidence of the payment, and then you can throw all the support away. And what comes in the support category? Anything that supports a number that went onto the return.
You can throw
Right?
that away.
Mm-hmm. If it makes you nervous, don't. But
Won't they
truthfully,
ask where your number came from?
if you're being audited, but once the audit period has gone by and you can't be audited anymore, then you care about the records of the tax return. The tax return is, 10 pieces of paper maybe, depending on how complicated. If you've got a really complicated tax return and you're paying a really high-powered tax attorney to do your return, you probably have one that's 50 pages. But it's not a big deal, right? Your return itself isn't that big of a paper. Keep the return, keep evidence of the payment, and the support can be shredded after that period.
Itemized. Don't you have to keep that?
Beyond the audit period, no. You do have to keep them. They want you to keep them so that you can prove it when they audit you. But when you're beyond the audit period, then no one cares anymore. Right? Used to be 7 years. The rules have changed. It's officially 3 years now. And you keep as many years as makes you comfortable.
Is it the same for business?
It's not the same for the business. The business and some other entities, it's more like 6 years. But truthfully, you keep as much as makes you happy. Personally, they can't go beyond 3 years now.
So if you're
Currently, in 2014.
Self-employed would be the same as business, 6 years.
Except that it's
If you don't, only if you file
because the self-employment income ends up on your personal return.
if you're a sole proprietor, so you
Yeah,
have to
as a sole
file
proprietor.
anything additional besides your Schedule C,
Mhm.
then that's still just like an individual return. If you have a partnership,
A partnership, an
anything
S corp, a
that has to file
corporation.
a separate return, then they'll treat that as Then it's a business.
The business
entity.
rules.
And those have to be kept 6 years, not your personal return.
Right.
So the income you get reported to you on a Schedule K or whatever else, 1099 miscellaneous.
Yeah, the 1099, yeah.
That's part of your, becomes part of your personal return.
Well, exactly. And you can keep your history of your returns for your whole life if you want, and it will only take up this much space in your file cabinet after 40 years, right? It's the support that takes up all the room, right? So once you're out of the audit period, then get rid of the support and keep the return. That's a good question. And everybody asks that question. And keep as much as makes you comfortable. But I have also cleaned out a garage that every return since they got married in they had like started putting boxes. The guy was an engineer, right? So he made a box for every year, and it went up in the corner, and it went all the way down this side, and then around, and then back down the other side, and they were running out of room for tax returns. It's like, yeah, they don't really care about your 1969 tax support now, bro. You can probably get rid of it. It's okay. So whatever level at which you feel comfortable, shred everything past that. Okay? Let me just say that. Okay. Everybody's cool? All right. So here's the last one. Don't keep more catalogs and magazines than you can read in a year. I hear the general panic that rolled through the room there in that moment. But Gayle, you're the #1 offender too. So people that like to read, some people are real book people and some people are magazine people and they love them and they subscribe to 1 million magazines and then they cannot keep up with them. And I universally hear, oh, I'm going to read those later. I'm going to read those when I retire. I'm going to read those over vacation. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're lying to me, and I know it. Okay? So here's the deal. You can do a little math, right? I have an hour, 30 minutes a day that I can read a magazine, let's say. I'm making it up. I'm making up numbers for you. If you have 30 minutes a day that you can sit down and read a magazine, and a magazine takes an hour to complete, that means at the end of the week you've read 3.5 magazines, right? Times 52 weeks means you've read 182 magazines. And I know you all have more than 182 magazines in your house right now, right? And they're all going to be replaced. Because you know, that one that you were supposed to read this month, then the next one comes before the last one got read, right? Okay, so this is my favorite magazine story. I taught a workshop and I got to this part and I was talking about paper and magazines and catalogs and she said, I have the great solution. I put them next to the toilet. Awesome. So you read them while you're in the toilet. How tall is the stack now? She said, about this high. So for those of you who can't see, it's about 4 feet off the ground. I'm like, girl, how much time are you spending in the bathroom? You cannot possibly get through that. So her system broke down because she was adding to it faster than she had allocated reading time to get through it, right? So this applies to everyone. If you work a 40-hour-week job, if you have small children, if you have a hobby or a volunteer job or something else going on in your life, you don't have hours and hours to lay around and read stuff, right? You have to figure out, I read every night from before I go to bed. I wake up in the morning and I read magazines with my coffee. I read at lunch at work. You have to figure out how much time you actually have in your life to read and do the math. And that tells you how many magazines you get to keep. And you got to get out of those subscriptions because they're just going to keep pouring those things to you. And they don't care if you read them. They only care if you pay for them. Right? Yes, ma'am.
Because I'm in this class, I'm going to start my project this week, and it's going to be saving pieces of paper out in certain magazine pages with only 3 categories. I'm going to tear them out, and I'm going to have a scrapbook for each one. One's going to be for recipes. The second one is going to be for vacations, and the third one is going to be for telephone.
Okay.
So if I see anything in the magazines that I'm reading
that you want to look
that
at,
I want to look at, that I want to keep, I'm going to have 3 different categories.
Okay, so she's defining a system that she's going to do, which is tear out of the magazines, vacations, health, recipes. Thank you. And those are the only things she's interested in, so she's going to tear those out and put them in a scrapbook. Okay, cool. So you're giving up some of your reading time to create scrapbooks. Is that cool with you?
Well, I mean, it's not gonna take me that long once I go through them and decide I'm gonna.
Okay.
Then I can do it.
Okay. So you guys heard it here, right? And we want to report later about how that's going.
And it's recorded.
And it's recorded, right? Okay, so and let me hear, I'm going to say this about recipes. There's lots of people that love recipes that also do not cook. This is me. Like, I don't like to cook. I don't like to read recipes. It's not my thing. He loves to cook, and he reads recipes, and he clips them, and he, like, actually makes the food. I could not be bothered. My roommate loves to cook. She reads recipes, and she, like, actually opens a recipe book and reads it like it's entertainment. And she cooks. But I mean, people that are into food find recipe books entertaining and wonderful. And I find them Greek. Like, I don't get it. But I really don't get the hybrid of I clip recipes, but I don't actually cook anything. I don't understand that.
It's because we envision that we are going to do that. We're hopeful.
You're hoping that the recipes are going to trigger your cooking instincts.
No, it's not going to happen.
That's true. Everyone's denial. So here's how you can modify that behavior, okay? So if the idea is it makes you feel good to look at the recipe, then look at the recipe and then just turn the page. Like, don't clip it. Wow, that sounds really, really good. Wouldn't it be great if somebody could make that for me someday? Turn the page. Just enjoy the thought in the moment and then let it
I
pass.
started doing this picture with my phone.
You're taking a picture of your phone?
Then I take a picture of the recipe, and I throw it away.
Okay, so.
I'm never really going to do it. I'm never really going to do it. It's just a picture of my phone.
So how she's, and see,
I
this
just
is
feel like I had to let it go, but I don't want to pay for it.
but it's a version of modifying and managing keepsakes. She's taking a picture of the recipe on the phone, and then she can throw the paper away. She doesn't keep the paper, even though that the photo is there, and it doesn't matter because she's not going to do it, but it's not taking up paper, which is awesome. And people use that as a separation step for keepsakes as well. Like, I know this needs to leave the house, this thing with popcorn that's dying that my kid made when he was little. But I explained to the kid, and I got to take a picture. And, if you take the picture, you get the picture, and you can let the keepsake go. And it's a good interim. It's sort of like,
about keepsakes.
it's like a assuaging step,
I
right?
started doing it with keepsakes, and then I thought, I'm going to do that.
Recipes, exactly, right? See, this is what Google gives you, the ability to take pictures of endless nothingness, and it's not floating in your house. Yes. There you go. See, she started a Pinterest board. See, that is the universal recipe clipper, right? You are so right.
And you're around someone who cooks, you just put it up.
Here's my library of 1,500 recipes that I'm ready for you to cook for me now. I'll just start that for you, Ed. You can start cooking things that I like. Isn't that so hilarious? Yes.
I used to get a lot of clothing magazines, and I called about 5 of them and asked them to quit sending it to me. And I was really nice to them. I said, now, if I ever need something, I'll call again. They all stopped it. I don't get the trashy mail like I used to get. It has stopped way down.
It does require a little effort and intervention to call catalog companies and say, really don't want your catalog, really don't want your product. And the truth is that they're getting really smart about the marketing because they don't want somebody that's not going to use the catalog. That's a waste of their money and postage. So they're really listening to that now because they want their list to be laser focused for people that actually want to buy their product because that's how they get their money back out of the catalog. So, it used to be a lot harder to get them to strike your name, but if you make the effort to call a couple of times, usually you can make yourself drop off and make it go away. You're right about that. You're absolutely right.
Actually, we don't get grocery stuff anymore. No grocery ads.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Yeah, you stop there. How do you get out?
Yeah, right. How did that happen?
You email them. Email them. You look on there. Like, I think Red Plum is run by the Chronicle, and you just send them an email. We don't
so the grocery junk ads, you can contact them and ask them to be dropped off too. Awesome.
Because we just throw it in recycling.
Yeah, it goes straight into recycling at my house. Yes, ma'am.
Well, when I order something now, if I call like Land's End, I ask them, do you sell your mailing list? and I do not want my name sold, and they go, okay, and put something, so you can.
Well, so what that means is they continue to send you their catalog, but
I
they
still
don't
get
pass it
that, But
on.
they don't pass it on, where you get all these other weird things.
Right.
You didn't know
So
where
she's
they
saying that when she orders, then she asks them if they sell the name, and I don't want it to be sold. So they set her account up so that she doesn't get passed on anybody else, which is great. Okay. So who else wants to ask me a specific question about paper today? Okay, let me start here.
I've been having problems with charity mails because I donate to a few different organizations, nothing major, but then I think my name's been passed around, and so I get some really unusual charities out there sending stuff to me. And then even the ones that you support, I may only support once a year, but I get something like every 2 weeks. And so this year, I have a new goal. I have all these little slips now, like, please take me off your list, do not share my information. And so even the ones that I'm not supporting, I thank you for your interest, but I'm not supporting you. I'm not interested in your organization. I support others, and I'm including it on the return. So I pay sometimes a stamp to return it because I don't want to do anything physically, but give them my email. It's the last thing I want to do. And
Well, and you're raising a very good point. Charity management, it's nonprofits, so they usually have the least sophisticated systems possible. B, they're managed by underpaid employees or volunteers. And C, they do, once you give money to somebody, you become a hot prospect, right? And you get on a different list. And they amp up the mail to you. And it's like there's not really, if you want to support people, you just sort of got to expect that you're going to be shunting off a bunch of stuff. And I love the idea of printing out an insert and just sending it back and say, please take me off the list. And maybe it helps dial it down for you a little bit. Have you noticed a difference?
I've only just started a couple months ago, so I haven't.
Well, yeah, keep us up. I want to see if it makes a difference.
I've even done it to the ones I support, and I say, I'm trying to reduce my own paper mail, and I'm only going to support you once a year, so please don't send me stuff every 2 to 4 weeks.
Yeah, right. Some of them just turn on the fire hose.
If you don't, I'll have to just stop all support for your organization.
Yeah.
And
see what happens. Yeah, don't share my name, right? Yeah, I'll be real curious to see if it dials down for you. Like I said, it's, dealing with Lands End is different than dealing with the little, save your pet company, right? That's nonprofit and perpetually out of money and always trying to raise money.
Have you tried anything else?
Yeah. I'm sorry?
Have you tried anything else for that?
No. You can get off of lists sometimes by, if Catalog Choice, if you go into Catalog Choice, sometimes you can get off of the mailing list through that stuff as well. But like I said, I don't think the success rate is the same for those organizations because of what you're working with. And I have other clients that say the same thing. It's like I give once a year. I don't make the decisions till December. I don't want to write 27 checks every month. I want to write one. Give me a break. And it's just like you just have to throw it away. They just have to waste their money. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I've also learned on things like that, you need to send in that letter that you rip the label off, because they have to have it spelled.
Oh, yeah, you got to have the ID stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, she's doing that. Yeah, see, she's being smart about it.
Also, the catalog choice is a great idea, but it's very cumbersome.
It is, you have to do some
select,
execution.
But you have to go select each one, they like.
Yeah.
You have to spend a lot of time.
Well, and they're trying to make it so that, if you want Lands End, but you only want Lands End at Christmas time, then you can opt out of all the other ones and keep the Christmas one coming or whatever. And so it does make it a little cumbersome. Yes. Oh, really? Oh, my gosh. Okay.
Question is one.
Yes.
Hi, I may need to get with you separately, but I need to learn how to set up a manual filing system.
Manual filing system. Okay. Truthfully, in somebody's household, I'll just sort of talk about filing systems in general. Most households can get by with a 2-drawer small file cabinet. You just don't have that much paper you have to keep. Yeah. Even if you're keeping, you have the house stuff and you have utility accounts and you have credit cards and you have banking things and you have, assuming taxes are in their own box. The rest of the house stuff, you don't really need a huge amount of stuff. And so people always say to me, do you think I need another file cabinet? No, the answer is always no. That's not the problem here. The problem is you're keeping too much stuff. So you ought to be able to dial it down. And if you have a business, then maybe you need a 2-drawer file cabinet for your business as well. But you personally, in your own house, the records that you have to keep for your, legal presence and the house and the utilities and the pets and the medical, you should be able to do that in a couple of drawers and be perfectly happy. So it doesn't have to be super complicated, and you do have to learn how to filter what really you don't need to keep up with. Yes, ma'am.
That's very understandable. I think what happens with a lot of us is the things that we don't have to keep, the things we want to keep, such as hobbies.
Keepsakes.
Hobbies, articles regarding hobbies, travel, health, things that you want to buy, something you might see, and you want to, I don't know, even that, keep information that you got on that product. So that gets overwhelming for me.
Yes, and so you're talking about, you're keeping information on hobbies, on personal interests, on, keeping, and so you're basically keeping your own research library.
Yes.
What's really happening is you're creating your own paper version of a research library.
Exactly.
And some people are more comfortable with paper, and I think that you are then, becoming a head librarian, and it requires maintenance.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's a system that requires maintenance. So you do have to sort of, at what point is keeping up with this 17th diet paper more important than my free time? So you do have to sort of filter. You're trying to reach a balance between how much personal research library you're keeping and how much free time you're giving up to keep it. Because if you commit yourself to that personal database, you have to be able to go find it all again, which means you have to create a system that you can put stuff in that you can then retrieve it again, right? And so it is a balancing act. And some people prefer paper. They don't want to go Google it all, and they prefer paper. And so that is a discussion to have. And with your own experience, I find that people tend to trigger grab. Like, oh, look, this is another interesting diet. I'm going to put it in the diet category. Because that's an easy default solution without thinking too hard about, is this really giving me new information? Is this really telling me something that's important or valuable? So you don't filter it very well. You just see that it's on the topic of diet and you put it in there, and then the diet category is this big, and then you can't, it becomes useless because it's so large you can't really do anything with it. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, exactly.
So, and I know people that are into information and books do that. They the default is, oh, this is about a topic I love, rip, keep. And you don't even think about it. You just do it, and then you're left with this pile of paper that you can't deal with. Your comment about that is?
What I was going to add to that is, the reality is, once your stack of paper gets past a certain point, say 50 sheets or 75 or 100, the time it takes, unless you're keeping it organized on all the time, unless you keep it, every new piece gets organized into a system, the time you spend trying to find the thing you're looking for could much more easily be spent just finding that information again. And my own personal example is, I will find a recipe I like and I print it, and I know where it is the first time I fix it. Then when I want to cook it again, it's like,
where is that recipe for cornbread?
And if I know what I'm looking for, it's like, it was the Italian sausage soup with fennel. You put that into Google, and that recipe will come up, and it'll even still be purple because it's one I've already visited. It takes like 2 seconds to find the recipe again. What if you've made it and you know what's in it? And I think there are probably other categories like that too, especially if you're finding and collecting information from the internet in the first place. Finding it again is usually not.
It's much quicker than creating a paper library from the internet.
So your whole thing is, though, you're saying you kind of started with books, but you prefer now internet because of that, right?
Yeah.
I kind of went through that process too.
I even had an experience.
It was too much trouble.
This morning I was looking for a bit of information, and I've gotten so used to looking things up online that I needed to go look for a reference on a grammar question, and I was checking a book that I have, and I went to the index, and I was like, what am I supposed to do with this?
I don't know how to look it up in a book anymore.
Yeah, how did we do this before you could just try 6 different search terms in a row until you found the thing you needed, you know? So I think you can still delude yourself that the 300 pieces of paper
is
are going to
better.
come in handy, but
Yeah.
man, if you got a good internet connection.
It becomes a burden in and of itself. But if you create the very specific, this is my library of data that I find interesting, at some point it really becomes a burden. Thumbs up, yes. Okay, let me wrap up and come back to you. Okay, so I'm going to say goodnight. Thank you everybody for coming, and I will see you next month. And we're going to turn ourselves off here. La, la, la.